Number 19 gives us this equation and asks us to find all values for theta between 0 and 2 pi. So on that interval from 0 to 2 pi. All right, so the first thing that's screaming at me right here is that we've got 1 minus sine squared. Let's change that to cosine squared. Then everything will be cosine. So we get cosine squared theta. We're replacing this with that cosine squared. Minus cosine of 2 theta equals 1/2. All right, so now we've got everything in terms of cosine. Now at this point we have a choice. We can use one of our power reducing identities, replace that cosine with 1 plus cosine 2 theta over 2, and then we'd have a couple of cosine 2 thetas in there. But I'm actually going to do this with a double angle identity. I want to replace this cosine 2 theta with our double angle identity for cosine. So that is, let's see, cosine, 2 cosine squared theta minus 1. Remember, we have 3 identities for cosine of 2 theta. So cosine of 2 theta is equal to cosine squared minus sine squared, or 2 cosine squared minus 1, or 1 minus 2 cosine squared. But we want everything to be cosine. So now we've got this. And now let's distribute that negative sign. So we get cosine squared theta minus 2 cosine squared theta plus 1, because that negative sign gets distributed, is equal to 1/2. And now we can subtract these. Cosine squared minus 2 cosine squared is negative cosine squared theta. And then subtract 1 from both sides. 1/2 minus 1 is negative 1/2. And now both of these are negative. Let's change that. Let's multiply both sides by negative 1. So we get cosine squared theta is equal to positive 1/2. And now let's take the square root of both sides. So the square root of cosine squared theta is cosine theta. And that's equal to plus or minus the square root of 1/2. And the square root of 1/2, the square root of the numerator is 1. The square root of the denominator is just the square root of 2. So this is equal to plus or minus 1 over the square root of 2. And if we rationalize that denominator, that's going to be the square root of 2 over 2. So cosine theta is equal to plus or minus square root of 2 over 2. So theta is going to be any angle, and again we're between 0 and 2 pi. So any angle for which the cosine of that angle is going to give us either square root of 2 over 2 or negative square root of 2 over 2. And if we look on our unit circle, you can see that cosine is going to be square root of 2 over 2 here at pi over 4. And then it's also going to be positive square root of 2 over 2 down here at 7 pi over 4. And then also down here at 5 pi over 4, it's going to be negative square root of 2 over 2. And at 3 pi over 4, it's going to be negative square root of 2 over 2. So at all of those, pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, and 7 pi over 4. Those are all of the values that's going to give us, all of the values between 0 and 2 pi that's going to give us a cosine equal to plus or minus square root of 2 over 2. So that's going to be our answer.